All right, here with Coach David Dean ahead of the Albany State game, last non-conference game of the year. Will's ranked 10th in the AFCA and 13th in D2 football, and he'll open up with a statement and then open up for questions.
Excited about this week. First opportunity for us to travel and see how this team handles travel. Going to a very hostile environment, going to a place that's very difficult to play. Albany State's a very good football team, and when they play at home, they seem to play at a different level. I've had an opportunity to go in there many years, and they always seem to play very well there. So it's going to be a heck of a challenge for our guys, especially being a first road trip, how we handle all of that, handle the adversity of having a hostile crowd and a loud band and all of the atmosphere that goes along with this game. But we're excited about it, looking forward to the challenge, and this is our last opportunity to play an in-conference, or excuse me, an in-region team before we move into our conference play. So heck of a way to go out. Hopefully we can play well on the road and look forward to the challenge.
Coach, going back to last Saturday after the game, you said you were pleased with how your team was able to kind of rise to the challenge and get off to a better start. What were some other takeaways you got just going back and looking at that game?
Well, how well we did in the red zone. In the first game, we were not very productive in the red zone, had to settle for field goals. I also had two opportunities on fourth down in the red zone that we didn't convert. And against Limestone, we were 5 for 5 in the red zone. So that's a great improvement for us. Again, continue to take away the effort that our defense has pursuing to the football. We weren't always right assignment-wise, but we had outstanding effort and hustle. And sometimes that makes up for mistakes that you make. And I think that we're also playing a very physical brand of defense. And then if you go back and you look at special teams, I think for the second straight week, again with the exception of the missed field goal that we had, our special teams are playing very well. We did give up one big return on our punt. We missed a tackle. We were right in the right position to bring that guy down, and we just missed it, and he broke a long one. But from a standpoint of special teams and how we're playing, I hope we continue to play at that high level and win that phase of the game every week.
Coach, with the team seeming to be firing on all cylinders, what was your emphasis this week at practice so far?
Well, the main thing that we talked about was not being satisfied with where we are. We did have two good wins against two good opponents, but we can't be satisfied with where we are. Sometimes you look at Albany State and they've lost their first two games, but who did they lose to? They lost to Valdosta State, who's very good this year, and they lost to Tuskegee, who every year is a top team in that SIAC conference. So they've played two good teams. They've played them both on the road. This is their first opportunity to play at home. And that's the one thing that I've emphasized is what I talked about earlier, is how well they play there. So being able to step up to the challenge, not be satisfied with being 2-0. Let's move to 3-0 and win these three in-region games.
You talked about them struggling against two really good opponents like Val State and Tuskegee. What, just even in those two losses, just what kind of jumped out at you from what you saw that you really have to take note of this Saturday?
Well, from a defensive standpoint with Albany State, they were in position to make plays against Valdosta. They just missed some tackles, and that's unusual for an Albany State team. They usually are very good tacklers, and you could see the improvement in the second game, how much they improved in their tackling when they played Tuskegee. But they were in positions to make plays. They got behind early against Valdosta State, and I think they had to kind of disband what they like to do on offense, which is that ball control running with the option, and forced them to do things that they don't feel as comfortable doing, and that's throwing the football. Against Tuskegee, they only gave up 13 points. One of them was an interception for a touchdown that made it 20-0. So they played Tuskegee very well. They gave up two long passes, and it looked like both of them were just blown coverages that they had. But they had several big plays on offense that were called back because of penalties. So they were an explosive team. They just had the penalties that brought them back, and they never could overcome those penalties and continue to move the chains. That's what killed them in that game against Tuskegee, is just they had numerous penalties play after play after play, and that just killed them.
Coach, you talked about the importance of fast start last week. Is that underscored or emphasized even more this week on the road in a tough environment?
Well, no question. You want to get their crowd out of it as quickly as you possibly can. And if we can quiet them down, we're able to hear things much better on both sides of the ball as far as our checks on the offensive side and checks on the defensive side. So anytime you go on the road, a great crowd that can be silenced is a positive for you, and that's exactly what we want to do. It's getting off to a fast start. I think we can do that.
Last week you were talking about like this team kind of getting into a week-to-week rhythm. You weren't necessarily too pleased with how they, started the week off in practice last week. Has that kind of changed this week as they, kind of move forward through the season?
Well, we had a decent practice yesterday in the first opportunity that we had to prepare for Albany State. I thought we did some good things, but I thought at times we got very lethargic, and I think a lot of that had to do with the heat. And that's probably my fault because I had talked to them early in the week. It was forecasted that we may have a lot of rain, and I said, we're going to have to be able to adjust to some things. We may have to practice in the rain. We may have to go inside a little bit. We may have to do more walkthroughs. We just don't know what the weather's going to do. And lo and behold, we go out there, and it was about 92 degrees yesterday. It was very hot. And I don't think we overcame that towards the end of practice. So I'll take the blame for a lot of that. But again, it wasn't a terrible practice, but I don't think that we finished the practice the way that we should have. And so challenged them at the end of practice, obviously, yesterday to come out and practice better and not be satisfied with where we are. So we'll see how they respond today.
Coach, you mentioned weather and talking about that. Early forecast for Saturday at Albany is 95 for the afternoon. You glad it's a night game?
Well, we are kind of glad. I heard that it was 95 with 102 heat index. So that's going to be a little bit different for us. We've practiced in this heat, but I don't think we've had that type of heat index. Again, we talk to our guys all the time about hydrating and continue to drink all week long. And knock on wood, we've been pretty good with our conditioning and not having guys go out with cramps and different things like that. But this will be a test because their grass is a very high grass, different than what the playing surface that we're playing on. So it's going to be a little bit more spongy. So that kind of wears on your calves a little bit. It wears on your thighs a little bit. So hopefully we're going to be able to adjust to that. But this is going to be an extremely hot game. And yes, this is a good one to have at night. And the way that stadium sits, you sit down in a bowl, so that heat just kind of sits down in there and doesn't go anywhere. It sits on top of you the entire time. All right, thank you.